Listen, I don't care what your schedule says. We agreed on today, and I've already taken time off work, I say, standing in my doorway with Rusty's harness gripped tightly in my hand. I've been waiting for 3 hours. The silence on the other end of the phone is deafening. I can practically hear the contractor shuffling through his paperwork, looking for an excuse. Mr. Torres, I understand your frustration, but we had you down for next Tuesday, not today. He finally replies, his voice dripping with that fake customer service sympathy. That's not what we agreed on, I say, trying to keep my voice level. Check your email. I confirmed yesterday, and you replied, "See you tomorrow at 10 a.m. I feel Rusty shift beside me, his warm body pressing against my leg. He always senses when my blood pressure rises. 4 years old, and somehow wiser than most humans I know. Oh, I see the issue now, the contractor says after another pause. There was a mix-up with our scheduling system. I can't make it today, but I can put you at the top of the list for tomorrow. I take a deep breath. It's the 3rd time this month someone has canceled on me. Moving to this suburban Colorado neighborhood was supposed to be a fresh start, not a series of frustrations. Fine, I concede. But I need a specific time, and I need you to stick to it. The HOA is already on my case about the temporary ramp, and I need these permanent modifications completed. After confirming tomorrow's appointment, I hang up and crouch down to scratch Rusty behind his ears. What do you say we go for a hike instead, buddy? Clear our heads? Rusty's tail thumps against the hardwood floor. That's a yes. I grab my backpack, already packed with water bottles, trail mix, and Rusty's portable bowl. Within minutes, we're heading down the sidewalk toward Pine Ridge National Park, just a 15-minute walk from my new house. Despite all the hassles with the HOA and contractors, the location is perfect. After years of city living, the proximity to nature trails was the main selling point for me. As a music teacher at the local high school, having peaceful places to decompress is essential. Rusty guides me confidently, stopping at curbs and navigating around obstacles with practiced ease. The mid-October air has that perfect crispness to it, carrying the scent of pine and fall leaves. "Morning, Marcus," calls Mrs. Chen from her garden as we pass. "Beautiful day for a hike." "It certainly is," I reply, grateful for neighbors like her who simply treat me like anyone else. No awkward pauses or that uncomfortable pitch change people often get when talking to someone who's blind. We make our way to the park entrance, where I hear the familiar voice of Ray, one of the regular park employees. "Hey, Marcus, Rusty," Ray calls out. "Haven't seen you guys in almost a week." "The joys of homeownership have been keeping us busy," I reply. "Contractors who don't show up, an HOA that thinks accessibility modifications are eyesores. You know, the usual fun." Ray laughs. "The HOA around here makes the IRS look flexible. You taking the Aspen Loop today?" "That's the plan. Should be nice and quiet on a weekday morning." "Perfect timing," Ray says. "Just missed a busload of tourists. Oh, and they did some trail maintenance on the western section last week, so it should be smoother going." I appreciate these small bits of information. For me, knowing what to expect on the trail makes all the difference. "Thanks, Ray. We'll probably be about an hour and a half. The usual." "Enjoy it. And hey, Rusty looks good. Tell him I said he's the handsomest dog in the county." I smile, patting Rusty's side. "I think he heard you. His tail's going crazy." As we head onto the trail, I feel the tension from the morning start to melt away. The soft crunch of gravel under my feet, birds calling from the trees, and the occasional rustle of small animals in the underbrush create a natural symphony that always centers me. Rusty and I have walked this trail enough times that we both know the rhythm of it, the gentle incline for the first quarter mile, the sharp right turn at the big boulder, and the series of wooden bridges over small streams. I can visualize it all through memory, touch, and sound. We pass a few other hikers, most of whom give a quick good morning, and continue on. A few ask if they can pet Rusty, and I give my standard explanation. "Sorry, he's working right now," I tell a young girl whose footsteps had slowed as we approached. "When he's wearing his harness, he's on duty." "Oh," she says, sounding disappointed but curious. "What kind of work does he do?" Her mother quickly shushes her. "I'm so sorry," she says to me. "No worries," I assure her. "It's a good question. He helps me navigate since I can't see. He's my guide dog." "That's so cool," the girl exclaims. "So he's like a furry GPS?" I laugh. "That's exactly right. A furry GPS who also happens to be my best friend." As they continue on their way, I hear the mother quietly explaining more about service dogs to her daughter. These are the interactions I don't mind. Genuine curiosity, respectful questions. About halfway through our hike, I hear voices up ahead. A group of women talking loudly. As we get closer, their conversation becomes clearer. And I told the board that we need stricter enforcement," one woman is saying, her voice sharp and authoritative. "People think rules don't apply to them." "You're absolutely right, Diane," another woman responds. "It's gotten out of hand." As Rusty guides me past them on the narrow trail, I hear the first woman make a disapproving sound. "Pets aren't even supposed to be allowed on this trail," she says, loud enough for me to hear. I consider stopping to explain that Rusty isn't a pet, but decide against it. Not every ignorant comment deserves a response, and we're here to enjoy our hike, not educate strangers on service animal laws. But as we continue on, I can't help but feel a slight uneasiness creeping in. Something about that woman's entitled tone reminds me too much of my HOA president and her crusade against my accessibility modifications. Rusty and I continue along the Aspen Loop, passing through a section where the trail narrows and hugs the side of a hill. The aspens are at their peak autumn glory, and though I can't see their golden leaves, I can hear them rustling in the light breeze, a sound like gentle applause. We've been hiking for about 40 minutes when we reach my favorite spot, an overlook with a wooden bench where the trail widens into a small clearing. According to Ray, there's a spectacular view of the valley from here. What I appreciate is the symphony of sounds, the distant rush of the river below, birds calling to each other, and the way voices and other human-made sounds seem to fade away. "Good job, buddy," I tell Rusty as I unclip his water bowl from my backpack and fill it from my water bottle. "Take a break." I give him the command that releases him from his guide duties for a moment, and he laps up the water eagerly while I take a seat on the bench and pull out my trail mix. The peacefulness of the moment is interrupted by approaching footsteps, several people walking with purpose. I recognize the cadence from earlier. Those same women. "Excuse me," says a sharp voice, the one I now can identify as Diane. "Dogs are not allowed on this trail." I turn my head toward her voice. "He's a service animal, not a pet." "Well, he's lying down and drinking water," she says accusingly. "That doesn't look like he's providing a service to me." I take a deep breath, already feeling my peaceful hike evaporating. "I've given him a command to take a break. He's still on duty." "I'm on the board of the Pinecrest Homeowners Association," she continues, as if I hadn't spoken, "and we've had multiple complaints about people ignoring the rules." The absurdity of her statement almost makes me laugh. "Ma'am, this is a national park, not your HOA property, and Rusty is a service animal. He's legally permitted everywhere I go." "How am I supposed to know he's really a service animal? He's not wearing anything that says so. Anyone can buy those vests online these days." I gesture to Rusty's harness, which is indeed clearly marked, though I'm not legally required to have any identification. He's wearing a guide dog harness, but more importantly, the Americans with Disabilities Act doesn't require me to provide proof. I hear one of the other women whisper, "Diane, I think we should just—" "No, Sharon," Diane cuts her off. "My taxes pay for this park, and there are rules for a reason. What if everyone just brought their dogs here?" "A guide dog isn't just a dog," I explain, my patience waning. "He's been trained for 2 years specifically to help me navigate safely. That's why there are federal protections for service animals." "Well, I don't see any disability," she says, and her words hit like a slap. "You look perfectly fine to me." At this point, I stand up, clipping Rusty's water bowl back onto my backpack. "I'm blind, ma'am. Not all disabilities are visible. And now, if you'll excuse us, we'd like to continue our hike." As I give Rusty the command to resume his duties and start to move past them, I feel a presence directly blocking my path. "I want to see papers proving he's a real service dog," Diane demands. "For all I know, you're just claiming to be blind." The accusation is so outrageous that for a moment, I'm speechless. I hear uncomfortable shuffling from her companions. "Diane," one of them says, "let's just go." "No, Marjorie. People need to follow the rules. If he's really blind and that's really a service dog, he should have documentation." "I don't need to carry papers," I say firmly. "Federal law protects my right to have a service animal without documentation. Now please move aside." "This is ridiculous," she huffs. "Sharon, take a picture. I'm reporting this to the park ranger." "I'm not taking pictures of anyone, Diane," Sharon replies, sounding mortified. I try once more to move past them, Rusty carefully guiding me around where Diane is standing. And that's when it happens. "That dog shouldn't even be here!" Diane shouts, and I hear a scuffle, followed by a sharp yelp from Rusty. "Did you just kick my guide dog?" I shout, my voice echoing across the overlook. "That's a federal offense." Rusty presses against my leg, still in position despite the kick. His training is impeccable. He doesn't bark or growl, just stays by my side, doing his job even when under attack. "I did not kick him," Diane says indignantly. "He was in my way and I merely moved him." "You kicked him! We all saw it!" This is a new voice, a man I hadn't realized was nearby. "My daughter got it on video." "I absolutely did not," Diane insists, but I can hear the slight tremor in her voice now. "And it's illegal to film me without my consent." "Actually, ma'am," says a young voice, presumably the daughter, "in a public place like a national park, there's no expectation of privacy, and assaulting a service animal is definitely illegal." I'm still processing what just happened, my hand tightening on Rusty's harness when I hear more footsteps rapidly approaching. "What's going on here?" asks a new voice, authoritative, female. "Are you a park ranger?" I ask immediately. "Yes, Ranger Wilson," she confirms. "And my partner, Ranger Martinez, is right behind me. What's happening?" Before I can answer, several voices start speaking at once. Diane's shrill protests clash with the man and his daughter trying to explain. "She kicked his guide dog," the girl says, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I have it on video, look." "I did no such thing," Diane interjects. "This man was being aggressive and his dog was blocking the public trail. I simply tried to move past them." "That's a lie," Sharon says, surprising me. "Diane, you did kick the dog. I saw it too." "One at a time, please," Ranger Wilson says firmly. "Sir, are you all right? How about your service animal?" I run my hands over Rusty, checking him for injuries. He seems physically fine, but I can feel him trembling slightly. "I think he's okay, but he was definitely kicked. He yelped." "May I see the video you mentioned?" the ranger asks, presumably to the teenager. There's a moment of quiet as the ranger watches the footage. I hear the crackle of a radio, and Ranger Wilson speaking into it. "Dave, can you come to the East Overlook? We have an incident involving a service animal." This is absurd, Diane says. I'm leaving. I have a homeowners association meeting in an hour. Ma'am, I need you to stay right here, Ranger Martinez says firmly. Interfering with a service animal is a serious offense. I know my rights, Diane snaps. And I know the president of the Park Foundation Board. He's a personal friend. Ma'am, that doesn't change the laws that protect service animals, Ranger Wilson says. Now I'd like to get statements from everyone involved. I hear more footsteps approaching, heavy boots on the trail gravel. What do we have? Asks a new male voice. Dave, this is Marcus Torres and his guide dog Rusty, Ranger Wilson explains. According to multiple witnesses and video evidence, this woman kicked the service animal during a confrontation on the trail. Is that right? Dave says, his voice closer to me now. Mr. Torres, is your dog all right? I think so, I say, still keeping my hand protectively on Rusty. He's well trained, so he stayed in position, but he definitely got kicked. And you are, ma'am? Dave asks, presumably turning to Diane. Diane Harrington, she says, her tone suddenly more controlled. And this is all a misunderstanding. I would never intentionally harm an animal. I simply lost my balance and must have bumped into the dog. That's not what the video shows, the teenager interjects. She deliberately kicked him and said that dog shouldn't even be here. Young lady, it's impolite to interrupt adults, Diane says. Actually, Dave says, her testimony is important here. Interfering with a service animal is a federal offense in a national park. It can result in significant fines and even criminal charges. I hear Diane's sharp intake of breath. This is ridiculous, she sputters. I was just enforcing the rules. Dogs aren't allowed on this trail. Service animals are explicitly permitted in national parks, Ranger Martinez explains. They're not considered pets under the law. How was I supposed to know it's a real service animal? Diane demands. He doesn't have any proof. The law doesn't require handlers to carry documentation, Dave explains patiently. But the harness this dog is wearing clearly identifies him as a guide dog. I hear the crunch of more boots on gravel, and Dave speaks into his radio. We're going to need a park police vehicle at the east overlook. Park police, Diane says, her voice rising. This is insane! I'm being treated like a criminal over a misunderstanding. Ma'am, please lower your voice, Ranger Wilson says firmly. We need to document this incident properly. Mr. Torres, we'd like to take your statement, and then we'll need to check your service animal for any injuries. As the Rangers begin taking statements, I hear Sharon and Marjorie step away from Diane. I can't believe you did that, Diane, Sharon says quietly, but not quietly enough. We're leaving. Find your own ride home. Sharon, Marjorie, don't you dare leave me here, Diane calls after them, but I hear their footsteps continue down the trail. Within minutes, another vehicle arrives. I can hear the crunch of tires on the park road below the overlook, then more footsteps climbing up to our location. Afternoon, Rangers, says a new official-sounding voice. Park Police Officer Camden. What's the situation? As Dave explains what happened, I crouch down beside Rusty, running my hands through his fur, whispering reassurances. The adrenaline is starting to wear off, leaving me feeling shaky. Mr. Torres, Officer Camden says, approaching me. I understand this has been upsetting, but I need to ask you a few questions and document any potential injuries to your service animal. Of course, I say, standing up slowly. Rusty seems physically okay, but he was definitely kicked. As I give my statement, I hear Diane being questioned separately by Ranger Wilson. Her tone has changed completely. Now she's tearful, claiming she would never hurt an animal, and that she just felt threatened by Rusty's presence. The video clearly shows otherwise, ma'am, Officer Camden calls over to her. You were not threatened. You were confrontational and then assaulted a service animal, which is a federal offense. Assault? It was a tap with my foot. I barely touched the dog, Diane protests. That's not how the law sees it, Dave explains. Any intentional interference with a service animal while it's working is considered assault. As the officers continue documenting the incident, I hear someone else approach me tentatively. Mr. Torres? Says a familiar voice. It's, Mike Reynolds, from Reynolds Contracting. The contractor who stood me up this morning? What are the odds? Mr. Reynolds, I say, turning toward his voice. This is unexpected. I was hiking with my son, he explains, sounding genuinely embarrassed. I recognized you and, well, I saw what happened. That woman had no right to do that to your dog. There's an awkward pause before he continues. Listen, I feel terrible about this morning, too. The mix-up with your appointment, that was completely our fault. And seeing this happen, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Despite everything, I find myself appreciating the sincere apology. Thank you for saying that. I, actually told the Rangers what I saw too, he adds. For what it's worth. Before I can respond, Dave the Ranger approaches us again. Mr. Torres, Officer Camden is finishing up the paperwork, but I wanted to check how you're doing, he says. I'm okay, I reply. Still a bit shaken, but mainly concerned about Rusty. May I? Dave asks, and I understand he's asking permission to interact with Rusty. Go ahead, I say, giving Rusty the command that lets him know it's okay. I hear Dave crouch down, speaking gently to Rusty and checking him over. He seems physically fine, Dave confirms. These service dogs are incredibly resilient. I actually know a bit about them. Lost most of the sight in my right eye during my military service, and I've been considering getting a service dog myself. They're amazing partners, I say, feeling Rusty press reassuringly against my leg. Rusty here has changed my life completely. I can see that, Dave says, and I hear genuine admiration in his voice. The training they go through is incredible. He didn't even react aggressively when he was kicked. Actually, I say, I'd be happy to tell you more about the process sometime, if you're seriously considering it. I'd really appreciate that, Dave says. But first, let me update you on what's happening with Miss Harrington. He explains that Diane is being issued several citations, one for interfering with a service animal, another for disorderly conduct in a national park, and a third for making false statements to federal officers. She'll be required to appear before a federal magistrate, Dave explains. The penalties can include significant fines, and in some cases, they can even include jail time, though that's rare for first offenses. I don't necessarily want her to go to jail, I admit, but I do want her to understand that what she did was wrong. I understand, Dave says. The magistrate often orders community service in cases like this, sometimes with organizations that train service animals, which might be fitting. Officer Camden approaches, explaining that they need me to sign some paperwork confirming my statement. He guides my hand to the right spot on the forms, and I sign where indicated. We'll be in touch regarding any court appearances, he explains. The video evidence makes this pretty clear-cut, but you may still be asked to testify. As the official proceedings wrap up, Mike Reynolds approaches again. Mr. Torres, he says hesitantly, I know this isn't the time, but I wanted to let you know that I'll be at your house first thing tomorrow morning to start on those modifications. No more excuses or mix-ups. Under normal circumstances, I might still be annoyed with him, but after the day's events, his earnestness is welcome. I appreciate that, I tell him. And it's Marcus, please. Marcus, he acknowledges. And for what it's worth, I've been dealing with the Pinecrest HOA for years with other clients. They're notorious for making accessibility modifications difficult. If you need any help navigating their red tape, just let me know. Dave overhears this and chimes in. The HOA can't legally prevent reasonable modifications for accessibility purposes. That's covered under the Fair Housing Act. Try telling them that, Mike says with a snort. They think their architectural guidelines trump federal law. If you need assistance with that, Dave offers, the Park Service partners with a legal aid clinic that specializes in accessibility issues. I'd be happy to put you in touch. I'm taken aback by this unexpected support. Thank you. I might take you up on that. As things wrap up, Diane is escorted to the park police vehicle, still protesting, but notably more subdued. The teenager who recorded the incident approaches me. Hey, I'm Emma, she says. I sent the video to the Rangers, but I wanted to ask if you'd like me to send it to you too, for your records or whatever. That would be helpful, I say, genuinely touched by her thoughtfulness. I share my email address with her. People shouldn't get away with stuff like that, she says firmly. My cousin has a service dog for her seizures, and people are always giving her a hard time too. Unfortunately, it happens more than you'd think, I tell her. But having allies like you makes a big difference. As we prepare to leave the Overlook, Dave offers to walk back to the trailhead with us. I'm headed that way anyway, he says, and I'd love to hear more about your experience with Rusty, if you don't mind sharing. As we walk, I tell Dave about the 2-year process of being matched with Rusty, the intensive training we went through together, and how he's transformed my independence. The hardest part for most handlers isn't the training, I explain as we navigate a particularly rocky section of trail. It's dealing with the public, people who want to pet him while he's working, businesses that illegally try to deny access, or people like Diane who just don't understand the law. That must be exhausting, Dave says. It can be, I admit. But for every Diane, there are dozens of people who are respectful and understanding. And then there are days like today, where strangers step up and do the right thing. By the time we reach the trailhead, I've promised to meet Dave for coffee next week to talk more about service dogs, and Mike has confirmed tomorrow's appointment 3 separate times. Ray, the park employee from earlier, is still at his post and is visibly concerned when he sees me return with a ranger. Everything okay, Marcus? He asks anxiously. It is now, I assure him. Had a run-in with someone who didn't appreciate Rusty's presence on the trail, but the park staff handled it wonderfully. That's awful, Ray says. Was it that HOA lady? The one who's always complaining about dogs in the park? She was in here earlier throwing a fit about our pet policy. That sounds like her, I confirm. Well, she's been a menace for months, Ray says, always telling people she's on some important board and knows all the rules better than we do. As we say our goodbyes and Rusty guides me toward home, I reflect on the day's unexpected turns. What started as a frustrating morning with a no-show contractor somehow ended with justice being served and new allies in my corner. The next morning, Mike Reynolds arrives at my door at exactly 7:58 a.m. for our 8 o'clock appointment. Good morning, Marcus, he says when I open the door. I've got the whole crew with me today. We're going to get these modifications done right. True to his word, I hear several sets of boots and the unloading of equipment from what sounds like a large truck. As they get to work, Mike is unusually attentive, explaining exactly what they're doing at each stage and asking for my input on details I hadn't even considered. The exact height of handrails, the texture of non-slip surfaces, the type of audio features for the security system. During their lunch break, Mike approaches me in the kitchen where I'm making coffee. I've been thinking about what happened yesterday, he says, and I've decided to add some additional features to your modifications at no extra charge. Better exterior lighting with motion sensors, a more sophisticated intercom system, and textured pavement on the walkway for easier navigation with your dog. That's very generous, I say, surprised. But you don't have to do that. I want to, he insists. And not just because I feel bad about yesterday. My company should have been doing this level of work for all our clients with accessibility needs. Sometimes it takes seeing something firsthand to realize where you've been falling short. By late afternoon, the crew has made remarkable progress, and Mike assures me they'll be back tomorrow to finish everything. One more thing, he says as they're packing up. I've dealt with the Pinecrest HOA for years. They're going to give you grief about these modifications, no matter how nicely we do them. But I've documented everything to show it complies with both building codes and the Fair Housing Act, and I've got photos of similar modifications they've approved for other homes. Thank you, I say, genuinely moved by his thoroughness. That will be incredibly helpful. It's the least I can do, he replies. And if they give you any trouble, call me. I'll be there for the inspection and make sure they don't try to make you tear anything out. After they leave, Rusty and I settle in for a quiet evening. I'm just finishing dinner when my phone rings with an unknown number. Hello, Marcus Torres speaking, I answer. Mr. Torres, this is Dave Erickson, the park ranger from yesterday, says the now familiar voice. Dave, good to hear from you, I say. And please, it's Marcus. Marcus, he acknowledges. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time, but I wanted to update you on the situation with Miss Harrington. He explains that Diane has been formally charged and has a court date set for next month. But what surprises me is the next part. The magistrate has already indicated that, assuming she pleads guilty, her sentence will likely include a significant fine and 200 hours of community service, Dave says. And here's the interesting part. The service will be with Pause for Independence, the organization that trains service dogs for people with visual impairments and other disabilities. I can't help but laugh at the poetic justice. That seems fitting? I thought so too, Dave agrees. But that's not the only reason I called. I've been thinking about our conversation, and I've decided to apply for a service dog myself. I've already submitted the initial paperwork to Pause for Independence, and I'm hoping you might be willing to serve as a reference. They asked for someone who could speak to the impact a service dog has had on their life. I'd be honored, I tell him sincerely. Great, Dave says, sounding relieved. And one more thing. I mentioned your HOA issues to my partner, who happens to be an attorney specializing in disability rights. She'd be happy to look over any correspondence they send you, pro bono. By the time we hang up, we've made plans to meet for coffee the following week to discuss the service dog process in more detail, and I have his partner's contact information for any HOA issues. Later that evening, I check my email and find the video that Emma, the teenager from the trail, promised to send. She's also included a note. Hi, Mr. Torres, here's the video as promised. I hope Rusty is doing okay. I also wanted to let you know that I posted about what happened, without sharing the video publicly, on my social media, and it's gotten a lot of attention. My school's community service club wants to do an awareness project about service animals and the laws that protect them. Would you maybe be willing to talk to our club sometime? No pressure. Just thought I'd ask. Respectfully, Emma Sanders. I find myself smiling as I compose a reply, agreeing to speak to her club. What Diane did was wrong, but the ripple effects are creating unexpected positive change. 1 week later, Rusty and I are back on the Aspen Loop Trail, enjoying the crisp fall morning. The modifications to my house are complete, and true to his word, Mike was there for the HOA inspection, armed with documentation that left the inspector with no valid objections. We're meeting Dave at the East Overlook, the very spot where the confrontation with Diane occurred. As we approach, I hear him call out a greeting. Marcus, Rusty, over here, he says, and I detect excitement in his voice. Rusty guides me to the bench, and we sit down next to Dave. I've got news, he says immediately. I got approved for the initial assessment with Pause for Independence. They're fast-tracking my application because of my veteran status. That's fantastic, I tell him. When's the assessment? Next month, he says. And get this, guess who's going to be conducting some of the orientation sessions for new applicants as part of her community service? You're kidding, I say, realizing what he's implying. Diane? The very same, Dave confirms with a chuckle. Apparently, she's been surprisingly diligent about her service hours. The director of the program said she was resistant at first, but has actually become quite engaged with the training process. Sometimes people can surprise you, I say thoughtfully. Speaking of surprises, Dave continues, have you heard about the social media campaign that Emma started? She mentioned something about her school club, I reply. It's gone way beyond that, Dave explains. She's gotten several local businesses to put up signs about service animal etiquette, and she's organized an awareness walk next month. Even the park is getting involved. We're updating all our signage about service animals and training staff to better assist visitors with disabilities. We sit in contemplative silence for a moment, listening to the aspens rustling in the breeze. You know, I say finally, sometimes people see the guide dog and forget there's a person on the other end of the harness, but for every entitled Karen, there are a dozen people who step up when it matters. Dave laughs. And sometimes those Karens accidentally do some good by showing everyone else what not to do. As we continue our conversation, I feel Rusty shift slightly beside me, his way of alerting me to someone approaching. "Excuse me," says a woman's voice, unfamiliar, hesitant. "Is your dog a service animal? My daughter is doing a school project and—" I smile, ready to engage. "Yes, he is. His name is Rusty, and he's a guide dog. What would you like to know?" As I answer her questions, I reflect on how differently this interaction is going compared to last week's confrontation. The woman is respectful, asking thoughtful questions about Rusty's training and the challenges we face. When she and her daughter move on, Dave says, "You're really good at that, educating people without making them feel stupid for asking." It's taken practice, I admit, and I've learned to save my energy for the genuine questions, not the confrontations. "Well, I hope I can develop the same patience," Dave says, "especially since I'll be going through the whole process of getting used to a service dog myself." We spend another hour on the trail, with Dave describing the autumn colors to me in detail as we walk. He's particularly good at it, painting verbal pictures that help me visualize the landscape. As we near the end of our hike, Dave says, "By the way, I ran into Mike Reynolds yesterday. He was doing work on another house in the park staff housing area. He couldn't stop talking about the state-of-the-art accessibility features he installed at your place. Said it's become a kind of showcase for his company." "He did excellent work," I acknowledge. "And he's been surprisingly helpful with the HOA. They tried to claim the texture changes in the walkway violated their aesthetic guidelines, but Mike had photos of 3 other houses in the neighborhood with similar features that had been approved." "Sounds like you've gained a strong advocate," Dave observes. "Several, actually," I reply, which is not what I expected when Diane kicked Rusty last week. When we reach the trailhead, Ray calls out a greeting from the information booth. "Marcus, Rusty, and Ranger Dave, too, the Dream Team." "Hey, Ray," I call back. "Beautiful day out there." "Sure is," Ray agrees. "Oh, before you go, we just got our new brochures about service animals in the park. They're in Braille, too. Want one?" "Absolutely," I say, genuinely pleased by this development. As Ray hands me the brochure, he lowers his voice. "Just so you know, I haven't seen our friend Diane back in the park since the incident. Word gets around." "I'm not trying to get anyone banned from the park," I say quickly. "Oh, she's not banned," Ray clarifies. "But the story made the rounds in the HOA community. Turns out not everyone appreciates a board member who assaults service animals and gets federal citations." Dave chuckles. "I heard she was asked to step down from the HOA board." "Small towns," Ray confirms. "Can't hide much." As Rusty and I head home, I reflect on the unexpected chain of events set in motion by one unpleasant encounter. The contractor who stood me up is now a dedicated advocate for accessibility. The park is improving its service animal policies. A teenager is leading an awareness campaign. A ranger is getting a service dog of his own. And even Diane, according to Dave, is learning something through her community service. When we reach our house, I immediately notice the difference in how Rusty navigates the new entrance. The textured pavement gives him clear cues, and the subtle changes in grade make it easier for both of us. Mike's team has transformed not just the physical space, but also my experience of coming home. Inside, I settle on the couch with Rusty at my feet, his warm presence a constant comfort. My phone pings with an email notification. It's from Emma, confirming the date for me to speak to her school club about service animals. She also mentions that several local businesses have requested similar presentations. Another notification follows, a news alert from the local paper. I use my screen reader to listen to the headline, "Local HOA adopts new accessibility guidelines following service animal incident." The article quotes an unnamed board member saying the new guidelines were developed after a regrettable incident highlighted the need for better understanding of federal accessibility laws. It also mentions that the HOA is partnering with Pause for Independence on a community education initiative. I can't help but laugh. Diane's attempt to enforce her misguided understanding of the rules has resulted in exactly the opposite of what she intended. My phone rings. It's Mike. "Marcus, have you seen the article about the HOA's new guidelines?" he asks immediately. "Just got the alert," I confirm. "Well, guess who's been contracted to help implement the new accessibility standards for community spaces in Pinecrest?" Mike says, barely containing his excitement. "Reynolds Contracting is now their official accessibility consultant." "That's fantastic," I tell him sincerely. "They couldn't have chosen better." After we hang up, I sit quietly with Rusty, scratching behind his ears just the way he likes. He nuzzles my hand in response, and I'm overwhelmed with gratitude for this incredible animal who not only guides me through the physical world, but has, inadvertently, helped guide an entire community toward greater understanding. "You know what, buddy?" I say softly. "Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best changes, and sometimes it takes a Karen to kickstart a revolution." Rusty thumps his tail in agreement, and I know that the next time we hit the trail, we'll walk with even greater confidence, surrounded by a community that's learning to see beyond the dog to the person on the other end of the harness. The next day, as I prepare to leave for school, back to teaching music to teenagers who are equal parts frustrating and inspiring, my phone pings with a message from Dave. "Assessment date confirmed for next month. They said your reference letter was extraordinarily compelling. Thank you for that. Coffee again next week? Same time, same overlook?" I dictate a quick reply. "Absolutely. Rusty and I will be there. And Dave, this is just the beginning." As we head out the door, I hear the familiar sound of construction next door. The neighbor's long-delayed ramp project has suddenly been approved and is now underway. Mike's crew is handling that one too, from the sound of it. Rusty guides me confidently down our new textured walkway, and I smile as we step out into a world that, while not perfect, has shifted just a little bit in the right direction. All because one entitled woman kicked my guide dog on a trail, and 1 minute later park rangers surrounded her. Sometimes justice isn't just about punishment. Sometimes it's about the ripples of change that spread outward, touching lives in ways we never could have anticipated. And sometimes, just sometimes, even a Karen can unknowingly serve a greater purpose. Rusty and I have a trail to blaze, both literally and figuratively, and we're just getting started.